Welcome to the crossroads of the known and the unknown. This is AJ Parr's Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
Okay, we're here with Dr. Laurence Brock, and he had an interesting near-death experience when he was young. Although he grew up in a Jewish household, he had an encounter with a loving being, and he realized this could have been Jesus. Welcome, Laurence.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be on your show.
So can you talk about your near-death experience?
It was in 1976. I was 22. I'm going to be 70 this year, so some years ago. I was at a party. I had actually been living in Colorado in the United States and came back to Westchester, New York to visit my parents, and went to a party of a high school friend. And there was definitely smoking pot and drinking. And I didn't really feel like I was that high, but because it was kind of a normal part of my life back then. And I actually came up with a plan. I was going to tell the girl that I was too high to drive, even though I didn't think I was, so I could leave my car there and have a friend of mine drive me home, which meant I could go back the next day and talk to her, because it was really too loud at the party to talk very much. And so I had my friend drive me home. Almost all the way back to my parents where I was staying, I realized my sister needed the car the next day. So I had my friend bring me back to the party. I remember going into the party to tell the girl that I was going to take my car because I told her I was going to leave it there. I remember walking through the crowded house. I mean, it was crowded. The music was really loud and you'd have to push through people because it was so crowded. And I kind of remember getting to the door. I don't remember actually walking out of the door. I have a glimpse of walking along the path at the front of the house. And then the next thing I knew, I was out of my body, looking down. The car was smashed. When you look at it, you would have assumed the person in there died because it was so smashed. I was in the white light. My body was leaning against a tree like this with my legs straight out. My head was cracked open, and there was a police officer crouching over me. It was nighttime there, but where I was, it was all white light. Behind me was a big white circle, a different shade of white, and within that circle there was a full body silhouette of a man. It seemed like it was just all different shades of white, and there was a little, you could see light radiating off of that being. It was almost like I was just knowing or seeing three-dimensional, and it wasn't, this was not the physical level. This was different, and it was the feeling. I'm a very kinesthetic person physically, but the feeling part is what was the most. So what I was looking at didn't even seem to matter all that much, but I felt this love, this warmth. I didn't look down to see if I had a body, but it felt like I had a body because it just felt so nice. I don't know how long that was, but it didn't seem like, some people say it was years they were there. It didn't seem like that, but it didn't seem, when I retell the story, it seems very short. It felt longer than I'm telling it, but then, so the being behind me said, "You have to go back. Your father wants you to stay." I knew in that moment that the father he was talking about was God, not my physical father. And I went back into my body without thinking twice about it, just because everything seemed so good. Like where I was good, the accident was good, my body smashed open was good, everything was good. And I just went back in like, oh yeah, of course, this is totally fine. So part of my experience was I didn't know what to think of the white light, of the being, of what it felt like, of any of that stuff. So, but what happened is shortly after this, through some miraculous coincidence, I met this teacher who started to talk to me about some of this stuff. And when he talked to me, first he talked to me about Mary, and he talked about how open Mary was to God's love, And when he said that, I go, oh, that love is that's how I felt. In a certain way, I was like Mary, feeling God's love in my near-death experience. Then he started to talk about Jesus, and then I knew. And I knew that was Jesus behind me telling me to go back. Any words I use are not it. So it is so filled with love and wisdom and knowing and healing and more than you could think. Even I'm putting my all into it with my hands and with the sound of my voice. That part was what it was like. It was really quite amazing.
After this experience, you discovered that you had some healing powers, right?
Yes, I did. And even that took time to unfold. So something I did notice right away I was in the hospital for a while, and then I actually went back to Colorado once I was well enough. My mom kind of bribed me to move back to the Northeast after that. But I noticed right away that when I would touch people, even to shake someone's hands, or if I was talking to someone and I would put my hand on their shoulder, my hand would start to become warm almost instantly. I didn't know what to make of that either. It wasn't like now where people think of healing powers. It was before the internet. And so, but I discovered some things happened where people got better from what I did without me even meaning to do anything about it. And another really cool thing that happened was after I moved back to the Northeast, one day this woman shows up at my door without me doing anything and says, she was the sister of a friend of mine from Colorado. And she said, I'm the sister of your friend from Colorado. And my sister told me some really cool things, some interesting things about it. She didn't say cool. I say cool. And she said, I know someone who teaches about what happens after we die, and I want to introduce you to him. So she introduced me to this Sufi sheikh. The Sufis are like the mystical sect of the Islamic religion, and he did teach about. So I studied with him for 10 years. But one of the first times I met him, that's when he started to talk to me about Mary and Jesus. And it's interesting because he was Islamic, but what I didn't know is Mary and Jesus are both in the Quran. Mary's actually in the Quran more than in the Bible. So it seemed very weird to me that this Islamic teacher was talking about Jesus and Mary, but it's not.
And the fact that you were Jewish, how did your family and friends take it? Did you tell them about this experience?
I didn't really tell my family about it. I did mention it to some friends, and there was some not nice reactions about it. Some were fine. I didn't talk to that many people about it for years, but there was two of my good friends that were friends for years after I did tell them, and that was kind of the end of our friendship. So I kind of learned to keep my mouth shut about it until years later, and now everyone wants to hear about it. People didn't know about that. I mean, nowadays it's in TV shows. It's like everyone's interested in it. I mentioned it to a friend of mine the other day. She goes, oh, I didn't know you had a near-death experience. Like it was, it's like a normal thing for anyone to talk about it. So now I work with people on Zoom. It's kind of like when I start to work with them, they usually have to talk to me some, but usually within a few minutes, I start to see images about where their connection to God is, I guess you could say. And then I know how to talk to them about it so they open up to that. And then it is kind of like, and I even hold my hands like this, which I didn't do until a few years ago when a friend of mine, when I started working on Zoom, said, you're forgetting about how healing your hands are. And then I started doing it. But it's like holding that energy from my near-death experience around people. And then like, let's see, the other day I was talking to someone and actually they wanted to see me in person. So it was, but I was, sitting across the room from them, and they started to talk, and I said, just give me a moment. So, and I could see, so there's different levels in the spirit. So a lot of people want to do astral traveling, and that's kind of the lowest level in the spirit. So, but there's the astral, causal, mental, etheric, and then there's the soul level. What I do is from the soul level, but so this person had something stuck on the astral level, and so I started talking to him about the levels, and there was like gray energy around him, plus there was like a negative form that was probably a demon that I didn't need to define what that was affecting this person. And he had someone pass away in his life a few years ago, and he was just devastated since then. And so I saw all this stuff, and I talked to him, and all this stuff lined up, and his skin tone went from he was a white person, but looking grayish to looking healthy. And he said, yeah, I feel so much better. But so just holding that energy there, very much like the near-death experience energy, and knowing like how to undo that, and it's kind of cool. So someone who had a session with me, I'd say about a month ago, and it kind of stands out because it's someone who reached out to me and said they couldn't afford what I do, which normally when people do, I just kind of know intuitively that they can. But in this case, I knew, she couldn't. So I gave her a discount, and I worked on her. I don't even remember what happened in the session, to tell you the truth, but it's always this thing. And I just know how to talk to people to unfold this thing inside of them. So I don't remember what I was talking to this woman about, but so I got a text from her about a week ago saying, thank you so much. I've been able to walk. So she wasn't able to walk then, and that she was able to walk. And I wasn't sure if she meant ongoing or what, but it sounded really good. And then yesterday I got a much longer text saying that she's been walking since. She can go to the supermarket and use the shopping cart to walk, and she needs to use 2 canes, but she's been able to walk around. She said she's walking every day for, I don't remember what she said in the text, maybe a mile, or I don't know. But another thing that comes to mind, it was over the pandemic, someone who's in the hospitality business that really, and that's probably the business that got killed the most in the pandemic because people just stopped traveling. And the company he worked for, and he was an executive getting paid quite a bit of money. So they had to let a lot of people go, and he was one of them. And he asked me to help him get a job, and he got a better job. And we were both saying, how in the world did that even happen? But it's always this thing about the spiritual unfoldment of opening to this great thing that's in you and open to this great thing that's in the spirit that comes in. There was one, and this was very much in the beginning of me having my practice. So this woman, and I actually met her socially, and she had a phone session with me. So this was when I just started working over the phone and video stuff. And as soon as she started talking to me, I could see she had a Native American healing guide that was with her. And I'm usually reluctant to use the word guide because people humanize guides too much. And the things that are in the spirit are not humans. They look like humans, but it's way, way more than that. And so she started talking. So she had arthritis through her whole body, and basically it hurt every time she moved. And so I saw this in 1 second. I listened to her, and she kept talking and talking. And then I said, I'm going to interrupt you. There's this Native American healing guide with you. And she said, I know, someone told me about it, but I could tell she was afraid. And I said, you don't understand, this guide is there to help you. And I didn't see it, but I could see it spiritually. Her energy opened up, and it was like this. She goes, the pain's gone. And it happened in 1 second. So that was really cool.
Wow, interesting. So when you perform one of these healing sessions, do you try to remember that feeling you had when you were with Jesus, when you were out of body, when you were in that light? Do you recall that moment?
I don't consciously do that, but I practice every day. So I meditate and journal write every day. And sometimes I do have to, almost trick myself into it by thinking of things. but I'm very in the habit of practicing that. So when I work with people, it's kind of like that. I just get there. I normally don't have to, think about anything or direct my mind. It's almost in my body. It's, it's my habit at this point.
So if someone wants to contact you,
my website is laurencebrock.com. My phone number for texting or WhatsApp messaging is 732-567-6388, and that's in the United States, so +1. I have my YouTube channel, Dr. Laurence Brock, but on my website, there's a link to make appointments, or you can just send me a text and do it that way. And I work with people all over the world, which this amazes me. Every day I do it, and you could see the smile on my face. It's just like the coolest thing, because I work with people in South America, and I work with people, and the thing that gives me the biggest kick is when I work with people in Australia, because it's a different day, and it just seems extra cool. But to tell you the truth, even across the room is really, like, I went to this, it was on yesterday, Monday, and to see how much better, and this guy looked so down, and his skin tone was so unhealthy, and at the end he was just like happy, and his skin tone looked vibrant, and it was just great.
And all of this, you say, or you believe, that is the consequence of having that near-death experience somehow, right?
That was the beginning, but I've studied with a lot of teachers and have had, my near-death experience was phenomenal, but obviously these healings are phenomenal. And sometimes working with teachers, they do this kind of direct transmission thing that's increased my healing abilities and my understanding. It's hard to say which is the most magnificent, or, I always say the coolest, because it seems beyond description. And that's perhaps just because of the time I was, grew up in. So I just say it's so cool.
You also have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes. Yeah. Dr. Laurence Brock. I have 2 TikTok channels. I have Instagram also, Laurence Brock. So I put all the same things that are on TikTok or on Instagram.
So you're all over social media. Send me those links.
Yeah. And I have a Facebook personal page and a Laurence Brock and Dr. Laurence Brock for a business page.
Okay, so send me those links.
Okay.
So people can see your stuff and maybe contact you. Okay?
That would be great.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.